Good morning, SML, and happy Friday. It's episode 3 of M&M in the Morning. Meets here. I got Matt with me. What's going on, Matt?
Not much, man. I'm, glad to be here for yet another week. I wish we were talking scouting update as if it had dropped, but we're still in waiting mode. But I'm excited to talk some SML.
Yes, so today is Friday, September 17th, 2021. That marks day number 600 without the scouting update. So unfortunately, no regular season SML yet. But we do have the SML tournament going on. We're going to be talking about that briefly, because we're still in the opening rounds of that. So we'll probably talk about that more completely next week. However, we do have just the teensiest little bit of SML news to hit right off the bat. And then we're going to talk about Madden roster updates and the contracts that go along with those. So our first little bit of SML news that came out, I guess it would be last night. We're recording this on Thursday, as we always do. And that would be today. But so this came out on Thursday. Kellen Mond is the day one starter in Minnesota. I don't really think anybody had any doubts of that, but it has been confirmed by D-Muse.
Yeah, and I think that's the right call. I mean, you could start Kirk Cousins, but you're only going to have him for a year, so any development that you get from that first season, you're just going to go to waste because you're cutting him. You're not going to. I don't know if his contract is up or what have you, but you're not re-signing him, and you're not going to carry that contract any longer than a year if he can even get out from under it right away. Might as well see what Mon's got. He's fast, which is kind of this game's kind of playing into those fast quarterbacks. See what he's got right away. That way, if he doesn't have it, maybe he's just one of those quarterbacks that doesn't feel good. You can go into the draft or the free agency or trades and address that need immediately. So it's a good decision.
So I'm trying real fast to pull up Mon's ratings. So I want to just, even though you're starting Mond, it doesn't necessarily tie you to him for the full cycle. I know that back when I was the Giants, I decided day one, all right, I'm benching Eli Manning, and I'm going to see what I can do with Kyle Lauletta, which went terribly. I think he lasted about 2 games, and I went back to Eli and tried to figure it out. So Kellen Mond is a 67 overall. He does have 85 speed. 88 throw power is fine. You can work with that. Where are his throwing accuracies? They put them so far back.
Yes.
Okay, so 87 short, that's pretty good. 73 medium, 70 deep. It's serviceable. You can work with it.
Yeah, and I like what you said. Just because he's starting him doesn't mean that's the quarterback of the future, but he is the quarterback of the future that that D-Muse has on that roster. Kirk Cousins isn't exactly a spring chicken, even if you wanted to stick with him. You might as well see what you have. You never know. Those accuracies aren't that great, and honestly, I have used Dwayne Haskins, and that's been a nightmare. And he's got really bad accuracy. I don't think it's to the level of Mond, and he certainly doesn't have the speed. But I'm tempted to start Dwayne Haskins just to see what I've got, and that's kind of what you have to do in that first season. What do you have on your roster so that when you go into the first free agency and the first draft, which are very important for team building for the whole cycle, what do you need to address?
I think it would be a little bit different if you were debating between 2 young quarterbacks, but with a veteran that is not going to last the full cycle, who is pretty average at best to begin with, versus a rookie or a younger guy just in general, not necessarily with the Vikings. It's always the right move early in the cycle. Start that young guy, see what you got. Like I said, I mean, if you start him a couple of games, decide, hey, this is not the quarterback for me. Go back to the vet that's higher rated, and then try to win some games and maybe draft a quarterback in the first round and see if you like him better. I mean, that's kind of what you have to do. And we know certain teams have an issue with that. I'm looking at you, Figs. Just because they don't ever stick with the guy.
Yeah, I mean, Dom knows what he's doing. The guy made a Super Bowl last cycle. When he wasn't making the Super Bowl, he was in the playoffs. He was in contention. Um, he knows what he's doing. I'm sure he put a lot of thought into it, and he may or may not have put in a lot of practice. I think it's a kind of an easy decision, especially with Cousins' contract. I don't know if he'll end up cutting him. I don't know if that's a possibility. I haven't looked at the contract on the game, but um, it, Dom's doing what he knows is best, and it's 100% the right decision.
So Kellen Mond does only have 76 throw on the run, which is going to really hamper your mobility, even with that 85 speed. Um, Kirk Cousins somehow has 88 throw on the run. Not sure how that's possible, but I don't know, man. I think you got to ride it out with Mond. I know D-Muse, he's a good player. I think if I had to go out on a limb, I'd say Mond's the starter the whole cycle. Unless he absolutely hates him like the first 2 weeks.
Oh wow, that's bold. I don't know if I'm ready to go that far. I think he's actually got worse accuracies outside of short. His accuracies are worse than Dwayne Haskins. I just looked it up, and Haskins was a nightmare to use on sim mode. I don't know how much he's played with Mond on sim mode. It makes a difference. Haskins was terrible for me, and he's got better, even got better throw on the run than Mond. He's got better deep and better medium. So it'll be interesting to see how if he sticks with it, how long he sticks with it, because it gets frustrating.
Well, it's really gonna be a struggle at the start. I don't think there's gonna be any big quarterbacks in free agency year one. I'd be kind of surprised, especially one that's gonna last the full cycle. And D-Muse is probably gonna be drafting late enough that I mean, you could do it and turn around and draft a guy like the Broncos did a couple of times last year in second and third round and turn them into something good. But then, you're basically already doing that with Mons, so why not just stick with him?
Yeah, for sure. And he's got a lot of time since we played the whole cycle. That's kind of one of the benefits of the SML. You have a long time to build guys that are in the 60 overalls if you really want to.
I mean, and regardless of who the starting quarterback is, I'll be really surprised if the Vikings don't make the playoffs season one. So they're not going to get their shot at essentially probably the top three, maybe in the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, unless he pulls off some trade, which that roster doesn't have a whole lot of. It has pieces, but a lot of the pieces you can't move. I think the trade rules prevent a lot of their good pieces from being moved. So I don't see him having the assets to trade up either. So I agree with that.
All right. SML tournament. We are currently, I guess technically we're in round 2, even though almost everybody got a first round bye. So we'll just call it round 2. We've had, I believe, what did we say? 8 games played so far, out of 17 eventually will be played. So we're like roughly halfway done, just in terms of total games. Let's do broad takeaways first, and then we'll go from there. I can't really take anything away from this other than the fact that I haven't seen anything that surprised me. I don't think anything's changed versus last cycle.
Yeah, it's hard because we were talking about this in chat earlier. Dan had brought it up, and I agree with what he said. Comp mode and sim mode are really different. So, in my opinion, I've played on both and done a lot of test franchises to play against guys on sim mode, and it's way different. I talked about Haskins being terrible. He's not as terrible on comp mode, so it's really hard to get an idea. And how many of these guys are running custom playbooks and offenses they'll run, and are they just kind of screwing around? But everything's kind of gone according to plan. Bomber kicked ZZ all over the field, 38-7. NYT did a number on two-step. Dump and Tiny, I guess it kind of was close at some point, but that's kind of a blowout. I think the biggest surprise is probably you and Grams. I just going back on last cycle, you were the better player. I know there sounds like there was some weird stuff that happened in that game. I didn't watch it, and it was close. But for the most part, it's hard to take anything away from this tournament. But it's just fun to watch the streams. It's kind of SML action. I don't know. At least we have football.
I just want to shut that down real fast. I'm not letting you make excuses for me. That was just a good game played by Grams all the way around. I really can't blame it on anything. We both played well. I think I threw one interception, and I think it was on a Hail Mary. so it doesn't really count. I mean, it does in the stat book, but it doesn't really count. And we went to overtime. I don't have anything to complain about. Yes, last cycle I was the better player than Grams, but historically we're like pretty much on the same level, and we always play each other close. And in fact, Grams probably has a winning record versus me all time. I'd have to go back and check that, but I'd be willing to bet that he has a winning record over me.
And he's a good.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a good player.
Yeah, he's been. I mean, I've mentioned this many times. I've played with him for a long time. He's always been a good player. So last cycle was kind of weird for me to see. Dan and Spooky, that was an interesting game. Dan kind of went up early, and I thought, oh well, here we go. Dan's just going to destroy him. And then Spooky came back. Dan threw at least 3 interceptions. I don't know if he ever threw a fourth, but he threw at least 3. But what I noticed is he had guys running streaks way right behind Spooky's safeties on a couple of different occasions. And I don't know if Dan didn't see the read or if he was like, okay, that zone is broke, I'm not going to throw to that guy. So it's things like that. I don't really take much away from it. I just think it's fun that there is something for the guys to do while we wait for the scouting report, because I know some guys are getting a little restless. I don't know if they're joking if that to start the league or not, but I know guys are asking for scrims and there's not a whole lot of response sometimes. So it's nice that people are getting games in that want to play.
Your point on the Dan and Spooky game, I didn't think about that until right now. Dan is that guy that, not too long ago he was saying like, hey, I don't necessarily agree that I got a penalty in my favor. I'm going to decline it because I'm a nice guy. So maybe you're onto something there about Dan not throwing certain throws because he thought the zones were broken, which I think is just fact at this point. That really, I mean, he really did only win by 1 score, so that could be something to keep an eye on. I think regular season time, all bets are off. I think Dan just goes back to being Dan, and he's going to throw for 5,000 yards,
Yep, no, I agree. This was just a fun scrimmage, and he missed the reads. I don't know. I'm totally guessing. I did not talk to Dan about it. I mentioned it in chat, but not to Dan. It was while they were playing. But yeah, if once the season starts, he's not. No more Mr. Nice Guy. If that streak is open, broken zone or not, I think he's throwing it.
Selfishly, I'd like to say that Dan just missed the reads because that helps me out being in the AFC. It helps you out too. I doubt that's the case. I mean, Dan's a really smart player. Other games that we can talk about. Nothing much. You mentioned Mad Bomber and ZZ. Nothing much to talk about there. Bomber blew him out. Future and Figs, I thought was an interesting game because Future is historically one of the better, not last cycle, but historically one of the better players in the league. Only beats Figs by 8 points in a low-scoring 14-6 game, which really, I mean, just looking at the final score there, could have gone either way. That's not something I would have predicted. I would have expected Future to win by more than that.
Yeah, and I think the team. I think Future was the Patriots and Fig was the Niners. So that may have played into it a little bit. But yeah, I think it was 7-3 all the way into the second half, if I remember right. It was earlier in the morning that they played. And not good defense. I think it was more bad offense. And the Pats really don't have any wide receivers. It's kind of tough to move the ball as them. But so I am surprised. You just look at the other scores. Everybody else has no problem scoring, and then there's that 14-6 on there. But yeah, Future he'll have it better when he has his actual team, because the Patriots offensively don't exactly light up the scoreboard.
I just made this connection in my head. Every year we say, "Hey, defense might be broken. Hey, this is broken. X, Y, and Z is broken." Right when the game came out, everybody was scoring like 40, 45, 50 points in pretty much every game that they played. I think my first online game against the Rando, I dropped like 60 points. You know what? I'm looking at these scores. Nobody scored more than 41 points. And that only, I think NYT actually scored 42. But most of these scores are like in the 20s range where, hey, maybe defense is not as broken as we all think it is.
Yeah, I don't think zones are broken as in every single zone. I think the broken part is the deep blues. I think the safeties will just, in some of Dan the clips I saw of Dan, the safety just doesn't react. And the sidelines. There's a play called Dagger. It has three wide receivers on one side of the field, and one of them, the slot one, runs all the way to the other corner of the field with it's a crossing route. I swear to God, unless you use or defend that, and you have to really, if you're using a linebacker, you have to really be on it and know the call, or you won't get there. You can't stop it. No zone goes to that to the corner. But um, I think overall, some of the zones are okay. But even when a zone is okay, your defender won't react. I've had instances where a guy's run a curl and my defender is standing in front of the receiver that ran the curl. Receiver throws it and my defender doesn't even do anything. He just lets it go over his shoulder to the guy who's literally right behind him and he catches it. So I think it's some of the broken stuff is the zones, but it's also just defenders being spectators. I played a scrim against someone and I threw a pass that should have been picked and the defender just stopped running. But yeah, we always adjust. The game's always broken in some way or another, but we always adjust to it, and I think that's what you're probably seeing a little bit.
Yeah, from a defensive perspective, it's extremely frustrating when let's just say you got a linebacker. I can think of a play that I had just the other day. I don't know who I was playing. Where it was probably on the 5 on the 10-yard line, like in the red zone. Pass goes right over the head of my linebacker. Didn't make any effort on it whatsoever. That kind of thing is really frustrating defensively. That's been like a legacy issue. Sometimes it happens. Alternatively, I've also seen a lot better passing windows this cycle compared to like guys getting suction interceptions every other throw. So I really do think that you can fit it into a lot tighter window this year, which I see as a lot more sim. I mean, you just watching the Giants-Washington game, you're looking at Daniel Jones and Taylor Heineke, and they're fitting it in windows between like 4 different guys because they're NFL quarterbacks. They can do that. Whereas in the NFL, SML or Madden in general, you try to do that, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be intercepted or knocked down. But I'm liking the way actually that defense plays as a whole. Yes, I want to fix zones, especially on the sidelines, but I think defense as a whole right now is okay.
Yeah, someone mentioned in chat, I think I don't know if it was Coop, but someone said if they tweak the zones a little bit and they tweak defender reaction, especially when you roll out. If someone rolls out with a quarterback, your defenders will just stand there and look at them. They won't actually do anything until the quarterback starts running. That can be kind of frustrating. But I think it was Coop. He said if they tweak the zones and they tweak defender reaction, this will be one of the better Madden games that we've played in a while. I have to agree. I love the movement. I love the wide receiver DB interactions that you mentioned that kind of creates those windows. I love the running game. You have to be patient, watch for holes. You can't just get a fast running back and run stretches outside all the time. So hopefully when they do tweak these zones, because they said they will, they don't break something. That's always kind of the hold your breath moment with EA. But I have high hopes for this Madden. I think it's going to be fun if they don't screw it up.
The run game is, yes, the yards per carry is going to be significantly lower this year, and that's a good thing because you had just your bum running backs averaging 6 yards a carry easily. I mean, 6.5 was probably the league average for the top 32 running backs. Now you got, I'd expect the league average to be closer to 5. It's still going to be higher than the NFL average. But it just makes breaking a long run with an average running back or a slow running back just that much more. I'm blanking here on the word I'm looking for, but it just makes it feel that much better.
You even if you gain 15 yards on a run, satisfying. If you gain 15 yards on a run, it feels like an accomplishment and it feels good. And it's not because you can never gain yards. It's not that it's 0 or 15. It's just you kind of have to be smart when you run. You have to follow your blocks. You have to look for the holes, which may not be the direction you're running. You may have to cut back. It adds some strategy to it. I mean, I was a big rusher last cycle, and when I would run for 15, it was like, if I'd have done this, I would have scored a touchdown. Whereas in this game, man, I get 15 yards on a run. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it. Now I feel like I want to do some play action because now they have to think about it, which in the last game, you could just do whatever you wanted in the run game.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Tangent over. let's move on to the week one roster update, which just dropped last night. Um, let's start with the contracts. And oh boy, there was some big contract extensions between the last roster updates. Let's start with the albatross that everybody's going to be complaining about, or at least D-Muse. Right tackle Brian O'Neill signed a massive contract extension. He's now in Madden, a 78 overall, with 6 years left on his contract, totaling just under $100 million, which is crazy, let alone for a 78 overall.
Yeah, I think this is the one of all of the salaries that we're going to talk about. This one hurts the worst because one, he's not very good. I mean, 78's not terrible. I would take that on my poor Steelers O line, but he's making 9 million or 6 million to start when we first start the franchise, and then he jumps to 9 and the second season, and then the third season he's up to 19 million for a 78 overall right tackle. That's just painful. Luckily, that Kirk Cousins contract is going to go by the wayside to help, but yeah, D-Muse not happy about that one.
If I'm D-Muse, I don't know if I would sacrifice a focus player on O'Neill, but I'm doing my best to grow him up a little bit. You can deal with the 7 million cap hit this year. You can deal with the 9 million cap hit next year. 2023, which would be season 44, I think. 19.1 million, and then season 45 you're gonna what did I say, 44? So season 46, 22 million cap hit. I'm looking to trade him after these first 2 years, or man, I don't think you're gonna be able to cut him. You might just be stuck with it.
Yeah, and I think he's probably, I don't have his age pulled up on the game, but I think he's 25.
He is 26.
Okay, so his birthday is September 15th, so that yesterday, so they must have, are you looking at it in the game or on his Wikipedia?
I just Googled it. Happy belated birthday, Brian O'Neill.
So I'm guessing since he hasn't had his birthday yet, he's going to be 25 in the game. That's my guess. I don't know. Well, he's had his birthday in real life, but not when the game came out. But either way, 25, 26, at least he's not 28, 29 and got this big deal. So like you say, I don't know if you focus on him, but you could probably get him into, I don't know if he's star or not, but maybe you could get him into the 80s and lessen the blow. I do think offensive line matters a little bit more. But yeah, 19 million on a right tackle, even if he does get to the low 80s, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially on that team because they do have holes to fill.
I mean, it remains to be seen if offensive line is going to matter more this year than it did in years past. I'm leaning towards yes, but we'll see. But man, you're paying a 78. I don't know if he even has like an elevated dev trait. If I had to guess, I'd say he's probably star dev. But he's definitely not a superstar, and now you're going to be paying him $20 million a year for a large part of this cycle, if not the majority of it. That and if even really hurts.
Even if O-line does matter, I don't know if it matters enough to pay a guy $20 million a year. In fact, I know it doesn't matter that much, especially if he doesn't have a superstar trait that makes him really powerful. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what D-Muse does with Brian O'Neill.
You remember last year when they came out and they said, hey, whatever you pay your players on your team, that's going to reset the market just like it would in real life. I don't know if that actually works, but oh God, I hope that does not do that for the right tackle or the right tackle market in Madden, because we're going to have to start paying 78 overalls, like that much money. None of them are going to get signed in free agency, and then they're all just going to get picked up like week one. For like significantly less.
As someone who needs a tackle, in fact, as someone who probably needs 2 tackles, that's a very scary thing that I didn't think of.
I just thought of it now, and now I'm terrified to think what that first free agency is going to look like for O-line. I'm praying that this active contract does not, in turn, reset the market for future contracts in Madden free agency. And you know, EA, it probably won't, but if it does, oh boy, man, offensive line's going to be expensive this year.
Absolutely.
In which case, I will be paying each player $1 million and starting 65s the whole cycle. Because we'll see. All right, TJ Watt is signed. He's a 94 overall. He is 26 in game, which, geez, I didn't realize he was that old. He signed, I believe it was a 4-year extension. In Madden, it looks like he's got 5 years left, totaling $122 million. First year cap hit, not bad. That's the last year of his rookie deal, $8 million. But then it shoots up to an ungodly $31 million in the next season.
Yeah, so this one's obviously near and dear to me because TJ Watt is on my team. It's a lot more than I think even Dan, who's the resident Steelers fan, had set me up for what it could be. He told me that it probably wouldn't be much more than what the game was asking for. And I think this is more than what the game was going to ask for. But it does jump to 31 in the second season, but then it goes down to 27. It's only $4 million, but it all helps. But a couple of things. I took this team because I like the defense, and TJ Watt's the cornerstone. I was sticking with him no matter what. Now I don't have to worry about him leaving or tagging or something crazy happening. I also took this team because they have a lot of cap, $62.5 million as the game looks right now. And that's with Ben making a $30 million and Joe Hayden making 15. I'm getting rid of both of those guys after the first season. So even with Watt, I think I'll be able to have cap flexibility. I'm probably going to end up drafting a quarterback, which means I won't be paying him a ton of money for a while. So even though this one kind of stings because if we had started on time, I think I could have got him for a lot cheaper, probably more in the 19 to 20 range. But he wasn't going anywhere anyway, so it is what it is.
And I mean, that's just that hurts too because yeah, I mean, like you said, he's 94. He's actually worth it. But I don't know if I agree with the real life contract, let alone the Madden contract. They made him the highest paid defensive player of all time. I'm not sure that he's worth that. Yes, he's a borderline top 5 pass rusher. Probably, I mean, almost definitely a top 5 linebacker, period. Is he the best player in the league on defense? Chandler Jones just had 5 sacks in one game. So I'm going to say no. I don't know if he deserves to be the highest paid defensive player of all time when Aaron Donald still exists or Jalen Ramsey still exists or hell, Chandler Jones still exists, who needs a contract, by the way.
Yeah, and I feel like in the NFL, the whole highest paid insert position here ever is just who signed his deal last. Russell Wilson was the highest paid quarterback for like 15 minutes, and I think someone else signed a deal right after. So is he worth the most of more than Aaron Donald? Absolutely not. But if Aaron Donald signed a contract tomorrow, he would make more than TJ Watt. So I think it's just who signed first. What I've understood and have not done enough research into, I understood that there's something's going to happen. There's like a TV deal pending, and I don't know if it's Sunday Ticket and Amazon or if there's some kind of contract is up. But I've heard rumors that the NFL cap is going to really shoot up next year, and maybe that's why we're seeing the Brian O'Neill contracts because he's making 19 and TJ Watt will be making 31. So what are you going to pay TJ Watt? $5 million more than an average right tackle? I know they're different positions, but humor me a little bit. So if the cap shoots up in real life, it probably works out. And he had a sack fumble against Buffalo, who they did not deserve to win that game on paper because their offense was terrible, but their defense is why they won. So I don't know. We'll see. In real life, it could come back to bite him if the cap doesn't shoot up, but you can't lose him. So I don't know. It's a lot of money, and I feel like in the NFL, whoever signed the contract last, that's the highest paid person in that position.
Yeah, and I mean the cap in real life is going to go up. It's supposed to go up a lot, like next year or the following year even. It kind of stagnated this recent year. I think it even went down a little bit just because of COVID and less revenue sharing due to less ticket sales and stuff like that in general. But now I think every stadium's back to full capacity. Plus, I think, like you said, I think there's a new TV deal kind of working. Um, that is, I did the research beforehand. It is a little bit reflected in Madden. Um, so the cap in 2021 in Madden is 213 million. Between now, which would be 2021, and a couple of seasons in, by 2026, the Madden cap is at 277, which that's a 30% increase in 5 seasons. So it's really not that bad. I mean, it goes up to 253 in just 2 seasons. That's 40 million extra room that you got. So all these contracts that look awful right now are really gonna be okay going forward. I mean, yes, it's still gonna be over 10% of your cap with that 28.1 million cap hit in 2024. But it's fine. TJ Watt's probably worth 10% of your cap.
Yeah, and I traded for him late last cycle when he was in his mid 30s, I think, and he was great for me. Actually, I was one of the key things that propelled me into the Super Bowl with his run defense. And this, like you said, there's 5 years left. He's going to be 31 at the end of it, so he shouldn't regress too bad. I've still got a couple of years that I could probably progress him, and if he continues to play like he did last Sunday, he might even get a boost from the rating update if we don't get the scouting patch soon. So, but like I say, if this would suck if I had plans to trade him. He's obviously untradeable because he's X factor, but that's where it really gets into a problem. Is if you have a guy that you really think has value, and then in real life they go and add on to his contract, and now you can't trade him. That's where it gets tricky. But I think we'll be able to manage this one.
Yeah, I don't think that he moved in the week 1 roster update, which not a ton of people did actually. But it is just week 1. It's easy to overreact and say, "Oh, hey, man, he should be a 99." Chandler Jones had 5 sacks. He went up 1 overall. So, the last contract that we wanted to hit on just before we talk about just the update in general was Marshawn Lattimore's deal. He signed a 5-year extension. In Madden, he's got 6 years left. He's an 87 overall, only 25, which is weird because I feel like he's older than TJ Watt, but he's not. The last year of his rookie deal is this year. Only a cap hit of 4.3, which is awesome. But then next season it goes up to 27.5 before it dips back down to 17. Lattimore's a good player. Maybe not a cornerstone player, but at 25 in Madden, you can definitely make him a cornerstone player. Not sure he's going to be worth that 27 and 22, but after that, hey, 17.9, 18.4, that's not a bad cap hit for a guy like that.
Yeah, I think this is actually, of the 3 deals that the 3 that we're now talking about, I think this is the best one. He's, like you said, 87 overall, 25. He's at least star. So he's a good corner. He could probably get up into the 90s. You could probably get him to superstar. He's got room to develop. Yeah, sure. Next year you got to bite the bullet, 27.5 million, but then it really levels out at 18 and then 18.5. I feel like that's good value for an 87 overall corner. I feel like the game value would probably have him about that. Whereas with TJ Watt, I think I could have got him a lot cheaper. So, and this would be a good example. I don't think he's superstar, and if he's not, this is an example of maybe this is someone that Klink would look to trade, but now he absolutely cannot. I guess technically maybe he could, but I don't think it's feasible. But I don't know why you would. He may not be your cornerstone now, but he locks up a very highly important position in Madden, and a top corner is tough to get. And he doesn't have to worry about that now.
Actually, if he's star dev, he is under SML rules tradable because his cap penalty is somehow only 16, and our rule is anything over 20 is illegal. So that is technically tradable. I don't know why you would do it because it doesn't save you any money. Maybe not right now, at least. A couple seasons in, it would start saving you a lot of money. Then you could probably bring in a bunch, but at that point, he's probably mid-90s. So I don't know if you'd really want to.
Yeah, and somehow, first, I don't know how the Saints found this cap in real life because they don't have any, and they somehow just sign this guy for an extra 23 million next season over the 4 that he's making now. But you look in the game, they got 65.5 million in cap space, and I know a lot of that reason is that Drew Brees' dead money is not accounted for, but they don't look like they're in such bad shape. And I know leading up to the draft, the team draft, a lot of the discussion around the Saints was they were in cap hell. I don't think that's the case. Even with this contract, they seem fine. I haven't done a deep dive into their books, but they look okay.
It is worth noting that the starting quarterback Jameis Winston is only on a 1-year deal, so you will either need to re-sign him. He is 27, so he probably as a quarterback could last the full cycle without regressing too much. But if you don't re-sign Jameis, then you're gonna have to draft a rookie, which probably might not be the worst idea. Just be given that contract of 27.5. That, and then you got 4 years on a rookie deal. So quarterbacks, at least for the moment, are cheap in New Orleans. We'll see if that remains to be for the rest of the cycle.
Yeah, and I know he's got to re-sign Terran Armstead, the left tackle, which he's
yikes.
kind of older, and he's really good. And if the Brian O'Neill contract factors into that, because Armstead's a tackle, he's got to do some things there. But if Madden did cap, if somebody went in there with a fine-tooth comb and made it completely accurate, had the Breeze dead money and everything, Klink would be in real trouble. But I think he's got some flexibility.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about just the roster update as a whole. Just the big impressions, some changes. I want to start off by saying I know it's easy to watch a guy in week 1 and say, oh man, this dude played really well. He's going to get such a big bump and now he's going to be a cornerstone on my team. That's not the case. I mean, you rarely see guys above 70 overall really get bumps of more than 3, and above 80, you're lucky to see 2+. In fact, the highest bump at all in this entire roster update, I think, was 4 by at least a couple people, I think. Tyson Williams of the Ravens went up 4 overall from a 63 to a 67. That math works. Trey Smith went up also from a 63 to a 67. That's the right guard for the Chiefs. I guess he's starting, apparently. I don't know. I'd get such a big boost if he wasn't starting. And defensive tackle for the Browns, Malik McDowell, went up from a 67 to a 71.
Yeah, we could punch EA like all around, with all the bad things, the bad decisions that they make. But I'm with you. You Tiny mentioned, Hurts only went up 1. You can't freak out over 1 week. You can't go in and say, someone had one good week or one bad week and just bump them 10 or drop them 10. It's one game. Anything can happen. So I like EA's approach of taking it easy. It seems that the guys that were rated lower overall got the bigger boosts. Like Chandler Jones, I think you mentioned, he only went up 1. I don't have him on my screen, but he played probably the best out of any of these players, but he only went up 1, probably because he already has a high rating. The Raiders got a big boost, and Ngakoue went up 2. And I know Max Crosby, I think his overall didn't go up that much, but his pass rushing attributes, I think, did get some nice boosts. So that's a big help for RD there. I know Las Vegas, hasn't had the best pass rush, but I like this. I've never paid attention to this because every league I've ever been in starts as soon as the first roster update drops, before the one when the season starts. So I don't know. This is kind of adding a new, as someone who's dropping out of fantasy, this is kind of giving me some fun in watching the Steelers on Sunday, where I normally wouldn't care what they were doing.
We should wait till October every year to start the league. I want to peel back the curtain for a second on EA, because EA, you think you're slick, but you're not, dude. Go look at the changes, and it'll show you changes by rating. The large majority of players who who changed in overall. They just changed their awareness. Like Trey Smith, I mentioned, he went up 4 overall. That's just because they raised his awareness from 50 to 60. Tyson Williams went from 60 to 68 awareness. I mean,
Yep.
They could put in a little bit more effort. Maybe make awareness not count as much except for offensive line or DB or something. Yeah, I mean, like you said, Yannick Ngakoue, he went up 2 overall, and I'm looking here. They bumped his tackle up by 1. His pass rushes went up like 1, maybe 2. His play rec went up 6, but then his awareness went up like a lot too. And that's, I mean, if you've ever fooled around with editing attributes offline or something, you know that for some reason awareness plays heavily into everybody's overall.
Yeah, Madden's been like that for a while. Back in the old days, and I don't remember exactly how it worked, but I felt like when you progressed players, you could, whereas now it's like you have the 3 archetypes and you kind of get what you get. But I feel like back before they did that, you could focus in on more specific attributes. And awareness is one you always wanted to stay away from because you don't really feel a big difference. But if let's say you're going to re-sign a guy and he's 79, if you get his awareness up even a couple points, that overall shoots up, and now you're having to sign him for more money. So it's always been that way. I didn't catch that that's what they did on a lot of these players. So Meats, that's a good catch by you. That's funny. Yeah, the awareness has always played really heavily into the overalls. That's why you can't always look at overall and say this guy's good or bad, because maybe they have a low awareness, but everything else is good. So that's maybe a little tip into some people that don't pay a whole lot of attention. Pay attention to their awareness. If the awareness is good, is high, and the overall is low, they're probably terrible. But look beyond the overall and see what else changed. And this Madden website gives you a good indication of what went up and what went down. I like it.
So a guy that went up a lot, Teddy Bridgewater, went from a 73 to a 76 overall. Looking at his individual attributes, he went up 1 in short accuracy, 2 in medium accuracy, 2 in play action, and 1 on throw on the run. And you're like, huh. Oh, he also went up 3 in break sack. And you're like, huh, where did that 3 overall come from then? And then you realize that they upped his awareness by 6 as well. Which, I mean, I don't know what awareness does for other positions. It certainly doesn't do anything for a quarterback in a CFM league with 32 users, because at least I wouldn't think that it does, because you're controlling that quarterback. Maybe it affects like the pressure threshold or something, but all I know that awareness does is on the offensive line, it helps the offensive line pick up blitzes better, which you could tell me they had 0 awareness and I'd believe you, because offensive lines don't pick up blitzes well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the key takeaway from this week 1 adjustment, whether a player went up or they went down, is looking at especially some of these big leapers, is what's going to happen if they have what if Teddy Bridgewater goes out and wins this next game and plays lights out? Did they shoot him up even more than 3? Like, is it like, okay, we've seen it 2 weeks in a row, now let's really push him up? And do they start increasing things other than awareness to get there? I think that's where it's going to get interesting, because I don't see us, even if the patch drops on Tuesday or whatever the rumor day is, I don't see us starting the league probably before the Thursday week 2 patch or update. So it'll be interesting to see what these big movers look like next week, if they have another good game or if they have another bad game.
I will say, I'd imagine whatever day the roster up or the actual update itself comes out, we probably will create the league that day. That doesn't mean we're going to be kicking off week 1 that day. That just means that's the roster that we'll be using. So whatever day that comes out, probably. Obviously, I don't have final say on that, but like I said, another guy I want to talk about, Matt Ryan. Old guy, not going to be around very long in the SML, but he dropped 3 overall. Man, he lost 1 to short accuracy, 1 to throw under pressure. That's it. That's all he lost, except for 7 awareness, which apparently drops your overall by 3. That's that's a pretty hefty hit. It looks like on the surface, but in reality, for a user team, it's it's fine. It's whatever. Didn't really lose anything.
Exactly. It's a good catch by you again. And 82 awareness. I mean, 82 is a pretty as long as it's not speed, that's not a bad number. So I don't think that's really it doesn't really affect the Falcons at all. And I obviously, who cares? It's Matt Ryan. You're going to use him for 1 season, and then he's done. But yeah, that's good catch, Meats. It's Taylor Lewan. He was another one that went down too. They dropped his awareness 6. Hopefully they dropped his pass blocking down. Oh, they did. They did drop his pass blocking down 3. So, but again, if he comes back and has a good week against Seattle, which I expect, I would assume that'll reset itself. But yeah, he had a bad week, a real bad week.
Overall, I don't think that roster updates for a very large part, like 99%, is not really going to change anything. Especially when it comes to your starters, at least long term, it's really not going to change much. And if you see a guy you lost to overall, hey, don't worry about it, because odds are he's not going to be on your team the full cycle anyway. But on the flip side, it can really help out guys that might be bubble players that you might be thinking about cutting from that 75. Like, for example, right outside linebacker Justin Hollands from the LA Rams, who I've never heard of him. Honestly, I've really never heard of him. And I feel like I've heard of most people in the NFL, and I guess he must be a rookie or something. I'm going to sound like I have no idea what I'm talking about because I've never heard of him before. But he jumped up 3 overall to a 73. He's 25 years old. Trying to see if he's a rookie right now. He's not a rookie. He's played in 32 career games, but he just jumped up from a 70 to a 73 overall. On the flip side of that awareness argument, yes, his awareness went up by 5, but if you look deeper, I mean, almost all of his defensive stats went up too. His zone coverage went up, his man coverage went up, play recognition went up by 6, which is going to help you in pursuit. Pursuit itself actually went up by 2 as well. Block shed up 2, finesse move, power moves, both up. So it really can help bubble players make the team when they have a really good week IRL. That'll be really interesting to see that if we get a week 2 roster update before we actually get in.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is I agree, and I don't think like you said, the roster updates are so minimal in most cases. Hollis is a good example, or Hollands is a good example, where he actually got some good useful boosts. But really, unless this scouting update gets drawn out even further, these probably won't matter. What I don't see here are any dev trait changes. Those could be huge. I would assume after 1 week nothing changes, but if the scouting update gets pushed back and thus our league start date gets pushed back, any dev changes could be pivotal. But these ratings here, again, if your guy's on here, don't sweat it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because dev traits really are the most important thing. I mean, you could say overall or speed or something like that, but in reality, it's not that big of a deal. What matters is dev traits because that's where you can go, especially on your younger players. I really wouldn't be surprised if we don't see any dev trait upgrades at all, just not even in the SML, but just at all until like week 6 or week 8 or something, when the Madden players, Madden devs have a wide range of tape to look at and be like, okay, this guy is deserving of superstar and this guy sucks. But at the same time, EA hates admitting when they're wrong. So there's a chance that, hey, they might only change a couple this year at all. And I mean, Trevor Lawrence, I think's an X factor. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. He plays like shit this entire season. There's no way that he wouldn't still be an X factor at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. And he's going to have a longer leash because he's Trevor Lawrence, #1 overall pick. But yeah, if it continues like that for a majority of the season, he will lose it. I mean, we saw Joe Burrow lose it, and all the guy did was get hurt. So I thought he had a pretty decent season. He didn't lose X Factor. I think he was superstar. I can't remember, but he's only star now, and all the guy did was break his leg or something. So the longer it goes, I guess the more serious they get. But I would say for this week, if you're looking at this and your guy has a red number, don't panic. It's probably just an awareness hit, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, Madden is not very nice to people that get hurt, as evidenced by Gerald McCoy, who I think is now out for the season. I think he's out for the season. He got injured. He played like half a game Monday night, and they drop his overall by 4 because he got injured. He lost like 3 to all of the pass rush stats. And his awareness, apparently, for getting hurt dropped. And he went from an 80 overall, which it's probably pretty generous for him at this point. Now he's a 76. It's just funny.
That's tough. I don't know what he did wrong. I didn't notice him in the game, good or bad. I don't know what he did to deserve that other than breaking his ankle or whatever he ended up doing. So that's too bad.
Yeah, he's out for the season. He played like a half. And so this is a knee injury. It's probably an ACL. I don't know why that means your awareness drops, but I mean, I guess they're projecting that for the future, but that doesn't change the player that he was for this season. I don't know.
Gardner Minshew went down 1. I don't think the dude even took a snap unless he took a knee at the end. So I don't know. EA is going to do their own thing, I guess.
That could. Did we get a week 3 preseason roster update?
Well, we got the one before the season kicked off.
So then I don't
know if it.
Then yeah, I guess
ratings.
We did, because I was gonna say, if Minshew didn't play and he's still going down overall, maybe they're like reflecting on his preseason stats or something. Yeah, he did not see a snap. Didn't see the field once. So.
Yeah, maybe they didn't. Maybe the very first update when the season kicked off that Thursday night, they just did transactions and now they're catching up. It's possible. But he only lost awareness, so.
On the flip side, EA is Cowboy fans, so he did just get traded to the Eagles. You know, that's a good for at least a -2, right?
That's it right there. Yep, you figured it out.
All right, guys, I think that's all we got for you today. We ran through the first segment so fast. I was like, oh, man, we're going to be in for a short episode. Here we are sitting at 52 minutes. So I think that'll be it for this week. Anything to add at the end, Matt?
I'll say it again. I hope that our show next Thursday, we've got a league created, scouting updates out, and we could talk SML football. But if not, we'll be here. We'll find something to talk about for 52 minutes, and we hope you guys enjoyed it.
Pray with me for a minute. Dear Madden gods, please, for the love of God, the real one, give us the roster update in the next 7 days. The scouting update in the next 7 days. And I will never talk bad about EA again until next week. Amen.
Amen.
See you next week, guys.